The USA women were playing the England women at Six Ways in Worcester in the final autumn international for these two sides, and it was a one-sided contest, and England left points on the field. They won 89-0, which is a record-equalling win, the biggest win they've had over the US. Absolutely smashed them in the second half. The first half they made hard going of it. There was a period where the game was just meandering aimlessly for about 20 minutes. The first 12 minutes, England were perfect, apart from goal kicking because of the wind, which was having an impact. 3 tries in 12 minutes from Cornborough, Dow, and Thompson. Abby Dow is just, you can play her at fullback, you can play her in the outside centre channel if you really wanted to, you can play her on the wing. She's a deadly ball runner, and her individual try on 5 minutes, I think, is the try of the game. But overall, the first 12 minutes, perfect start. 17 points in 12 minutes, and something that I have noticed with this England side is they will blitz to an early lead, and then they allow the game to meander and they lose focus, and the penalty count, the free kick count, the mistakes start creeping in. They lose a little bit of intensity in patches, and 20 minutes in the first half between Lydia Thompson's try and Lark Davis's try, there was no flow to the game. The US were disrupting the breakdown. That was a battle. The contact area was a battle. And the only area that England truly had dominance was the line-out. The US line-out completely misfired all day. The second half, it was just repeating, going long and not hitting the target. That's down to coaching telling the hooker to do that, be it the starting hooker or the replacement hooker. The line-out calls, they didn't want to go short. They didn't want to go to the middle. They didn't want to mix it up, which could have brought them some success. They kept going long. So that was the only area where England were totally 100% dominant in the first half, was the line out and carry on to the second half. Lark Davis scored her try in 31 minutes, and then Infante, a sniping scrum half's try in 37 minutes. Only 2 of those tries out of the 5 were converted, so England did leave 6 points in the first half on the field. So the scoreline could have been even bigger. We're looking at about 115 points England could have scored. 6 points in the first half left on the field. Let's have a look. How many points in the second half? Because they scored 60 points in the second half, but 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. They left another 10 points on the. They left 16 points on the field. That is generally terrifying. That it was 89-0. 60 points in the second half. It was constant. The US have put a lot of energy into the first half. Really put in a lot of energy. And they just ran out of energy. They ran out of ideas. So you had Tuima's try, Allcroft's try, Rowland got a try, Cow got her debut try, Byrne got 2 tries, Davis got her second try, Thompson gets a second try, Powell gets a debut try in there as well, Aitchison gets a try, and then Byrne finished it off with just powerful ball running, creates her own try, really. And it was consistent. Almost every couple of minutes there's a try being scored. I think the longest gap was about 9 minutes in between tries. 60 points in the second half. Just imagine if all those goals have been kicked. We are looking at 106 point scoreline. And that is not being disingenuous. This USA team, they battled hard in the first half. But the Canadians easily brushed them aside in 2 tests earlier this month. They lost against Ireland, and Ireland have been on a decline and are ranked lower than them in the world. They lost against an Ireland side that hasn't been playing well in recent years. And bearing in mind, the Northern Hemisphere sides have had a couple of Six Nation tournaments, whereas the Southern Hemisphere and the Canadians and US haven't played tests for 2 years. That showed as well. Some of the England players had more caps than the entire USA pack combined. There's a very inexperienced USA side. But their line-out was a disaster. And the breakdown, England had dominance of the breakdown because they had slightly quicker ball. They were committing less players to ruck. And quicker ball means you can just be prepared for second phase quicker. USA, they kept battling. They didn't let their heads sink. They did keep in the fight. But, they have a long way to go before they even equal the Canadians. And the Canadians, I think, out of this autumn, challenged the English side the most. Because they actually were leading them at one point and were really giving them a fight. In the first half last week, it was the second half where they slowly just ran out of energy. And again, I think that's that lack of playing for 2 years at international level. This USA side are well below the Canadian standard, well below the Black Ferns New Zealand standard, and were just hammered. And bearing in mind, the New Zealanders had the same problems the USA did with their line-out. But this USA side, there has to be some question marks about the coaching of the line-out and the breakdown, and that lies with the coaching setup. That doesn't lie with the players because they've been told this is how we have to just do this. And There were points where the breakdown, yeah, there was an equal battle. It was going either way, but generally, in general play, England were quicker at the breakdown, had quicker ball, and as the second half wore on, they were obviously blown by half time. Wasn't showing on the scoreboard, but the second half, conceding 60 points, they never really. There was a period where they got down England's end and would keep pressurising them. And they had a patch of about 10 minutes where they had a fair bit of ball. And England, again, in first and second half, had periods where too many penalties, too many silly little errors, and not and what coaches would say would be annoying penalties to give away, needless penalties, and that's something if we're going into a World Cup, and England are favourites for the World Cup, they need to rectify. They've got a Six Nations tournament coming up, should it get played, where the French and the Italians are the strongest opposition in the Six Nations. They have found weaknesses in this England side that haven't really been exposed this autumn. The scrum has been a weakness and the line-out has been a weakness at times, and the French and the Italians, even though they lost in the Six Nations, did expose weaknesses in that forward pack. Lewis Deacon coming in as forward coach has definitely done a very good job in coaching them in the build-up to this autumn and fixing some of those issues that have been exposed by France and Italy. But I can't see how any nation at this current time can topple England. England, their biggest weakness is themselves going into the World Cup next year. But a lot can happen in 12 months. The Six Nations could be really interesting, could be very, very open, should it take place. And of course, having a full year of Test rugby will help teams like Canada, the US, and New Zealand, and Australia, and South Africa, get game ready for that World Cup next year. So that'll be very interesting to see with a year's worth of rugby under their belts how much the gap closes. But I think England are standout favourites right now for the World Cup next year. Thank you very much for watching. Place your thoughts below. And of course, Wales will be playing Canada in 15 minutes as I'm recording this video. They kick off at 5 o'clock UK time, and that looks like a very interesting test match. The Canadians actually going into that as favourites. They are ranked higher, and they gave England a good test in the first half last week, and they are ranked third in the world. So that could be a very good, strong test for the Welsh, and it'll be a very close test match. So thank you very much for watching, and I'll have some more videos for you very, very soon.